Maybe, I don't know.
Are you referring to the annual report or the half-year report?
The annual report, PIAC 2021 annual report.
This is the annual report.
This is the annual report, January to December.
Yes, then it should be there.
But this is 11. This is what we have here.
So mine is given
Put up your mic. Anytime you are not speaking, put up your mic.
Okay.
Okay, so honorable members, I think the confusion is as a result of the fact that our clerk downloaded directly from your site. Okay, so in terms of the organization, that one is different from the one that was published. Yeah. Okay, so you are referring to the published.
I borrowed one, yeah. So
I mean the hard copy, not the electronic one on your site. Okay, and you said
page 11. No, we'll hand it over. It's okay. We'll hand this and we'll take it around. Let's see the point. Go on, show us the one, and then we'll see what. Yeah.
Honorable members, you can, from the one that you are having, you can look at page 19. The one that we downloaded from the website. Page 19.
Yeah.
That's it?
Okay.
Okay, so which point?
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, I was referring to paragraph 3.1.1.1. Yes. And then we reported that...
No, it's fair for you to read out. It's just a short paragraph, so read out, let's see.
Okay. Right. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I may read.
Yes, we're listening. I thought you referred us to paragraph 3.1.1.1.
Yes. That's page 11.
Sure.
They're down there, right. So, Mr. Chairman, this was what we reported. In line with GNPC's strategy to increase its stake in viable oil blocks, the corporation acquired a 7% interest from Occidental Petroleum and Ad-hoc WCTP company in respect of the company's Deepwater Tunnel West Cape 3-point assets for 119 million United States dollars effective 1st April 2021. The acquisition is to be transferred to GNPC ex-Ploco and translates to 5.950% and 6.04% production interest in the Jubilee and 10 fields, respectively, for GNPC. Mr. Chairman, in respect of that, that was. This acquisition, as we indicated, was to be transferred to GNPC ex-Ploco, and I've indicated the percentage, that has to be transferred. Mr. Chairman, following that acquisition, which was later ceded to GNPC's subsidiary, 100% subsidiary, the Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited. JOHL made its first lifting, 944,164 barrels of oil on the Jubilee field in the first half of 2022. Mr. Chairman, an amount of 100,748,907.95 million United States dollars, which was reported realized from the lifting, was not paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund as required by law. And Mr. Chairman, on this, PIAC relies on Section 6 and 7 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I may make reference. Mr. Chairman, under sections, please, 6, 7. of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act.
Six and seven, you said?
Yes.
Yes, go on. 6.
Mr. Chairman, under 6, we have this. The following shall constitute the gross receipts of the Petroleum Holding Fund. A, royalties from oil and gas.
No, wait a minute. What are we looking at? Petroleum. Go on.
Mr. Chairman, we have established that they have not paid that quantum of money into the PHF, and in our view, that is contrary to law. And we are trying to establish why we held the view that it was contrary to law.
Wait a minute. What section are we looking at?
Section 6, Petroleum Holding Fund of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act.
Section 6 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act?
Yes.
Which year?
2011.
Section 6?
Yes.
Can you? Yeah. Well, Chair, per my document, he's right. That's what I have here. The head notice, Petroleum Holding Fund Receipts, Section 6. And then 7 deals with carried and participating interest. So we are adding them. I don't know why you are having difficulties.
I think sometimes for a lawyer, you should also be reminding us of that's right, my colleague has told me, as amended. You should be telling us about the amendment.
Yes.
This is the amendment introduced into the Act. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, if you look at Section 6, if you look at the Amendment Act,
yes,
it doesn't appear the portion I'm about to read was amended.
Well, in that case, the original Section 6 doesn't read what you are reading.
It's exactly what I'm about to read. I have not even started.
Did you not say that the following, whatever, you didn't say that?
No, yeah, I said the following shall constitute. That's the original Section 6 actually.
That's part of the original Section 6?
Yes.
Doctor, my eyes, I'm not so sure. Let's have a look at this. Because,
where is the amendment?
Not talking about the amendment, it's talking about the main act, which is
Mr. Chairman, actually Section 6 was not amended at all. It was not amended at all.
Which one act is that? The Petroleum Revenue Management. Well, okay. Well, let's listen to what you have. Then we will take it from there and see.
And Alpha.
Yes.
Anytime you're not speaking, put off your mind. Okay. Please. Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Section 6, Petroleum Holding Fund Receipts. The following shall constitute the gross receipts of the Petroleum Holding Fund. A, royalties from oil and gas, additional oil entitlements, surface rentals, other receipts from any petroleum operations, and from the sale or export of petroleum. B, any amount received from direct or indirect participation of the government in petroleum operations. Mr. Chairman, in respect of this particular provision, we want to underline direct or indirect. Mr. Chairman, C, corporate income taxes in cash from upstream and midstream petroleum companies. D, any amount payable by the National Oil Company as corporate income tax, royalty, dividends, or any other amount due in accordance with the laws of Ghana. And E, any amount received by government directly or indirectly from petroleum resources not covered by paragraphs A to D, including, where applicable, capital gains tax derived from the sale of ownership, exploration, development, and production rights. Mr. Chairman, again here, we want to underline the capital gains tax issue because it will arise. Mr. Chairman, this is the provision of Section 6. Mr. Chairman, in respect of Section 7, that was the provision that was amended by the Petroleum Revenue Management Amendment Act 2015 at 893. And essentially, it substitutes a whole new provision for the original provision. And the new provision reads, with your permission, Mr. Chair. Section 7 of Act 815 amended. 2. The principal enactment is amended by the substitution for 7 of carried and participating interest. Revenue due from the direct or indirect participation of the Republic in petroleum operations, including the carried and participating interest, shall be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Mr. Chairman, in respect of this provision, we would like us to underline especially participating interest, including carried and participating interest, shall be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Mr. Chairman, it was the consideration of the committee that, contrary to Section 6E of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, capital gains tax was not assessed and collected by the Ghana Revenue Authority in the sale of the 7% interest by Ad-hoc in the Jubilee and 10 fields in 2021. Mr. Chairman, the committee did not rest. We wrote to the GRA, both the GRA and the Ministry for Finance, for responses on this issue. Mr. Chairman, in his written response to PIAC on the matter, the Ghana Revenue Authority referred the committee to the Ministry of Finance, indicating that the ministry was exclusively in charge of the transaction. And the Ministry of Finance, in turn, referred the committee to the Ghana Revenue Authority for answers. Mr. Chairman,
don't leave it at that. They referred you to this. They also referred you to another one. Did you check with the other one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Actually, what happened is the way we do our reporting. We we tease out the issues that we think ought to be addressed, and then we channel questions or queries to the various duty bearers that ought to work on that issue, and then we get their responses. Now, when we did this, we did it simultaneously. But when the responses came, normally we have what we call validation of our report. So when we call all the stakeholders to the validation meeting, that is where those issues are raised, if there are conflicting responses in respect of each organization. And yes, when they came, because the written responses were there, no one can deny, because you have written.
No, please, bear with me, follow me.
Yes.
You became anxious about non-payment of some figure.
Yes.
You referred to what you thought, your committee thought was the appropriate authority.
Yes.
They referred you to another institution. The other institution referred you to a third one.
No, to the other institution, the first institution that referred us to them.
Yes, right. So ultimately, you went back to the last one, and what happened?
No, ultimately, we had a validation meeting of all representatives.
Those who should be knowledgeable about that particular
Ministry
matter.
for Finance and GRA, including all other stakeholders, were brought to a validation.
What was the outcome in respect
So
of
the outcome was that the letters spoke for themselves.
And that money wasn't to be paid?
Of course, from the indication, that was why we recommended that we made a finding that this was wrong and ought to have been done.
Do you now know whether it has been paid or hasn't been paid?
Mr. Chairman, it's clear that it has not been paid. It has not even been assessed in the first place.
That's
yes. It has not even been assessed in the first place, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, so it was the recommendation of PIAC that the proceeds of liftings by JOHL should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Here we are talking about the amount in excess of the 100 million United States dollars. It was the recommendation of PIAC that those proceeds should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund, as the committee is convinced that the proceeds form part of Ghana's petroleum revenues. Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, like we indicated, the committee took a lot of things into consideration in arriving at this conclusion. Now, the portions of the Act that I referred to, Section 6 and the amended version of Section 7, they both indicate clearly that even revenues accruing to the Republic from the direct or indirect participation of the Republic shall first and foremost be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Mr. Chairman, it is the considered view of the committee that it matters not that other issues may be introduced into the whole conversation. What matters for us, our understanding of the law, is that the PRMA is the primary law that governs the utilization, management of petroleum revenues. And it says that any revenue accruing to the state, whether directly or indirectly, should first be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Mr. Chairman, we also know that GNPC is the primary commercial arm of the Republic of Ghana in petroleum activities. And so when this happens, we are dealing with GNPC per se. If you look at the whole GOHL transaction, it is GNPC that undertook those transactions. So our position as a committee, Mr. Chairman, is that lifting, whether it is lifted by 100% subsidiary of GNPC or not, ought to come first into the Petroleum Holding Fund, from where disbursements can be made for whatever reason. So, Mr. Chairman, our position on that matter is clear. Of course, for purposes of disclosure, the GNPC referred us to an advice from the Attorney General's Department purporting to okay such a transaction in the nature and manner that they dealt with this issue. Mr. Chairman, we are happy to say that we did not come to this conclusion without recourse to that particular advice.
Oh, bear with me, just once again. Yes, you did not come to your conclusion lightly without recourse to that particular one. But did you have a good look, comprehensive look at about all the laws? At all the laws, you seem to be talking about the Petroleum Management Act, the HO, whatever. Did you read the GNPC laws and all those? GNPC has got specific laws. They got PNDC law 64. They got GNPC law, whatever. Yes. Yeah. So. Yeah. So it's okay.
Mr. Chairman,
we know about the advert. We got copies, so don't worry.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah, I've got a copy. I'll share with you. Yeah. So I was asking, GNPC has got its law, GNPC law 64, 83. Did you read all those things? Did you take them into account?
Mr. Chairman, we did.
And your mind was
yes.
clearly made up that yes. There seems to be some breach of law here.
Mr. Chairman, our mind was clearly made up that those monies ought to have formed part of the petroleum revenues of Ghana.
Just a second. Chairman, I want to believe we are looking at paragraph 3 of the proponent's motion. I want to believe that. And it reads, illegal payment of oil revenues into offshore accounts in flagrant violation of Article 176 of the 1992 Constitution. I want to believe that he's speaking to that and he's demonstrating that.
Very well, yes.
I want to believe so.
That is the ground we are dealing with. Is that what we are dealing with?
Mr. Chairman, the position of PIAC in our report did not extend to specifically making references to the constitutional violations per se. So in the way and manner in which the ground is formulated, it will not be accurate for me to say that we are speaking directly.
Well, you're right. I don't think we need to trouble you on that. Yeah, so you are explaining to us. Yeah, sure. You are explaining to us what you have put in your document.
Yes.
So it's fair. Just go on with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you started the questions already. You want to thank me? What is that supposed to mean?
Let's leave those ones. And Alpha, please continue and finish with your
So, respectfully, Mr. Chair, so what happened was we considered that opinion thoroughly. We explored all the laws, in our opinion, that border around this issue, and we still came to an independent opinion, which we stand by on any day, that those revenues ought to have formed part of the petroleum revenues of Ghana and ought to have been deposited first in the Petroleum Holding Fund and not any other account. So for us, it was contrary to law for that money to have been deposited in any account, if at all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Are you done with your testimony
on that issue?
Okay. Okay. So we'll start with the Honorable K.T. Hammond.
Yeah, I asked you the question and I'm reiterating because it troubles me that you said you took account of the GNPC law, particularly 64, the establishment law of GNPC, and you went through the specific provisions in the law which allows them to set up companies, well, tell me, you keep on nodding. What did you glean from that? What did you glean from their law?
It is true that, yes, GNPC law allows them to set up companies. We are not disputing.
Not just that. In terms of their financial relationship, they set up the laws and then what?
They set up the companies.
Oh, sorry, they set up the companies and then what?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you see, as a committee, if you look at our functions under the law, we are a public oversight body, additional public oversight body that seeks to take the public interest at heart when it comes to governance of petroleum.
Try and concentrate on us.
Yes.
So GNPC law, you looked at the GNPC law.
Yes, we did.
And then you are conversant with the fact that GNPC is able to set up companies. They are allowed by their laws.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, not your accountability or your oversight responsibility. If you didn't have that, you won't be sitting here today.
No.
You are here because by virtue of that. So I'm asking you about the companies which are allowed by GNPC law 64 to be set up by them. You said you read it. In terms of the relationship, their financial relationship, what did they do? How did they go about the company's accounts?
Mr. Chairman, if a company established as a private limited liability, which has come to our understanding that GOHL is a private limited liability, of course it is a separate entity from even the holding company.
It's a separate one.
Yes, of course. And then their finances are dealt with in accordance with the Companies Act.
Nothing to do with the petroleum holding account and anything. Nothing to do with that.
Mr. Chairman, that is precisely where the problem is.
That's no problem. I mean, you identified the issue. They are allowed to do that, and you said that if they are a company, then they apply strictly the company rules. You made the point clearly.
Yes.
So what is the difficulty?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. The difficulty is that we are enjoined by law as a committee to ensure that not even a peso or a dollar of petroleum revenue due to the public goes elsewhere other than where
you are not enjoined by law to have conflation of the law in your brains. You are not allowed to do that.
No, Mr. Maybe unless there are specific issues that wants to.
We'll get there. My colleagues are getting very irritated. They're getting related. But let's settle this first. Yes. You just made a point to me rightly that they are enjoined by the Establishing Act to be able to set up companies. You've also accepted that if it is a company which has a corporate personalities and all those things, you say that then they operate within the confines of the Company Act, isn't it? They are not part of the petroleum bit we're talking about. Mr.
Chairman, I will respectfully disagree with the fact that they are not part of the petroleum.
If they are separate, how do they become married to?
That was why I said this is where precisely the problem is. I made a statement.
Is it a legal problem or factual problem?
Mr. Chairman, it's both.
Go on with it.
It's both. Mr. Chairman, I made a statement that the only recognized commercial entity that represents the interests of Ghana in upstream petroleum activities is the GNPC.
Well, it's not what you feel. We're talking about the law.
Exactly. That's why it's the law I'm referring to now.
The law allows them, GNPC law 64 allows them to set up companies. I'm belaboring the point. I will yield. I'm done with my questions.
Okay.
I will leave my colleague and then the other colleagues.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Mr. Alpha, right? The monies in issue, did they constitute revenue for purposes of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act?
Mr. Chairman, in our respectful opinion, yes, as a committee.
And you can confirm to the committee that the revenue so assessed and collected was not paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund, correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
And the said money was used to acquire 7% interest in a limited liability company.
Mr. Chairman, that will not be accurate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, at the time of lifting, the company had already been established.
Very well.
Right. Mr. Chairman, this was a company that was established by Ad-hoc itself, even prior to the acquisition. Right. And it was established in Cayman Islands.
Very well.
Another issue PIAC, looked at, but thought that it was, since our report is coming to Parliament, Parliament can make further considerations. So, Mr. Chairman, the company was already established, and for purposes of this transaction, when Ad-hoc wanted to, sell off its, interest, Ad-hoc made that known to the government of Ghana, and Mr. Chairman would recognize that Ghana exercised our preemption right, to acquire, this interest in those blocks.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I'm trying to suggest is that even from the beginning of the whole transaction, this was a preemption right exercised by the Republic of Ghana to acquire interest. Interest for who? In the interest of the people of Ghana. This is where we are coming from. Preemption rights to acquire interest in the interest of the people of Ghana. And as a public oversight body on this, we thought that whatever interest was acquired, it matters not that GNPC subsequently transferred it to a limited liability company which is 100% its subsidiary or not. In our opinion, we are clear that whatever proceeds come out of that transaction ought to constitute petroleum revenue under the laws of Ghana.
All right, thank you very much. And was the payment for the transaction made by GNPC directly to Ad-hoc?
Mr. Chairman, that wasn't very, very clear to us. Of course, what we had was that payments were not lodged in the account. If Mr. Chairman would follow, it was later, and that is not actually on record to us, that we heard where it was even deposited and all of that.
Were the payments made by the Ministry of Finance?
Mr. Chairman, PIAC is not in a position to confirm exactly that.
Very well. Honourable members, you may take your turns to ask the witness questions. Yes, Honourable Ejapa Mensah, and followed by Honourable Okujeto Ablakwa.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for the opportunity. Mr. Alpha, you make comments in your report to the effect, in your 2011 report, that 2021, apologies, the paragraph 3.1.1 that you made reference to earlier, that, and Chairman, with your permission, if I may read, in line with GNPC's strategy to increase its stake in viable oil blocks, the corporation acquired a 7% interest from Occidental Petroleum Ad-hoc in respect of the company's DWT, WCTP assets for 199 million effective 1st April 2021. This acquisition is to be
Honourable
transferred.
Member, I think that is what he read to the committee,
yes,
right? So can you go directly to ask your question based upon that?
Mr. Chairman, Is the witness aware that this statement in itself is not entirely accurate?
It will be unfair. It will be unfair to the witness.
Let me
yes.
add.
You should. You should.
In that,
yes.
In that,
if you want to.
GNPC actually acquired JOHL as an existing company from Ad-hoc.
I think that evidence has been given before this committee. He has said that before the committee.
No, not at all.
Mr. Chairman, exactly so. I've said that. I've indicated that even before the acquisition, JOHL was in existence. So I've indicated that.
So, Mr. Chairman, if the witness admits that JOHL was in existence and that GNPC then acquired JOHL from Ad-hoc, how does the witness reconcile that position with the assertion in his 2022 report that GNPC ceded JOHL, the acquisition to its subsidiary? How does he reconcile the two?
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, there are some information. Okay, let me go about this way.
GNPC if I may read.
GNPC initially told PIAC in our previous report, and if you remember where I read from, the same 3.1 point that you have read, exactly. So you see that it says this acquisition is to be transferred to GNPC Explorer. So GNPC itself was originally contemplating transferring this interest to Explorer and not to any other, company.
Now, wait a minute, calm down. Don't let us do speculations here. Let's do with what is on the document.
Chairman,
can you listen to him carefully, please, and then deal with it? So that can you re-emphasize the point so that he gets it right? Not what somebody was contemplating. What we have by way of documentation.
I am making references to paragraphs in the 2021 and 2022 reports authored by PIAC. One is to the effect that GNPC acquired 7% interest from Occidental. And another is to the effect that GNPC acquired 7% interest in Jubilee and 10 and later ceded, which connotes transfer to its subsidiary JOHL. I'm saying that the witness has proceeded to establish and admit before this committee that indeed and in fact GNPC acquired JOHL from Ad-hoc. So how does he reconcile the admission that JOHL was acquired to GNPC ceding its interest to JOHL?
Yes.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I think it is important for us to distinguish two things. Acquiring a company is one thing, and acquiring interest in respect of a given block is another, completely separate thing. And I think it is important for us to establish that point. The acquisition of JOHL, in fact, was not necessarily about the acquisition of the interest per se, which GNPC had previously communicated to PIAC will be interest that will be transferred to Explorer. That is the point I was trying to establish. So GNPC would testify and agree with us that when we finally saw JOHL in the picture,
you can't be sure about that, can you?
I'm hoping they will be truthful on that.
I agree with you.
When they finally gave us information about the transfers to JOHL, we queried why the original decision to have transferred to Explorer was abandoned. Mr. Chairman, but of course, we cannot force GNPC to give us all of the bases on which they have abandoned the Explorco issue and went in for JOHL. But Mr. Chairman, they have indicated to us that JOHL is 100% subsidiary of the GNPC, and that is another issue we are looking at. And so, Mr. Chairman, when you marry the concept of a government or Ghana exercising its preemption right to acquire these interests, to the fact that GNPC represents the commercial interests of Ghana, Mr. Chairman, immediately, in our opinion as a committee, we were convinced that unless there is another way of trying to siphon revenues from the government, there was no reason why any other company.
That unfortunately connotes criminality.
Mr. Chairman, that was I said unless.
Well,
it is not to say
we can do better than that. Can we rephrase? Can we rephrase?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Alpha, you are a witness of fact. Yes. I know you are also a legal practitioner, because you are my former student. Please leave your legal opinions aside and testify to the factual matters, the factual findings made by PIAC. Okay, that would be very helpful to the committee.
Respectful, Mr. Chairman. Okay. That's very well noted.
Yes.
What PIAC's consideration was that it would appear that if those monies did not come into the PHF, the state would be denied of legitimate revenues from petroleum.
The difficulty with that answer is what I was struggling with you about. You remember, I was talking to you about companies and companies and companies. Anyway, he hasn't finished. Let him continue. Yes?
Yes, so please continue.
I've got a text message from my wife that I should stop chewing. I had chewing up. Pardon me.
Can we concentrate? Let's leave the domestic matters aside and concentrate on this one. So, yes.
Advice, it's not you. The cameras are watching you. So.
Thank you, Mr. Alpha. Let's leave the miscategorization as I see it with respect to the JOHL seeding by GNPC and the acquisition by GNPC aside for now. Now, you indicate that you are very familiar with the GNPC Act, no?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Please, can you refer to Section 3 of the GNPC Act? And for purpose of the committee, if you may read 3A.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I would use the opportunity to request for a copy of.
You don't have a copy? Okay, let me assist you. Mr. Chairman, with your permission. The corporation shall, for the attainment of its objects under Section 2, exercise the following powers. For purpose of this conversation, I will just refer to A. With the approval of the minister, form subsidiary and affiliate companies, branches or agencies in or outside the Republic to carry out activities which the corporation is authorized to undertake. I want to find out from the witness if he is familiar with this provision, and if indeed he is this inconsistent with GNPC's acquisition of JOHL outside the jurisdiction?
Honorable members, can we focus on the issue that is at stake?
Yes, I'm building a point, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
And that issue relates to the manner in which the payment for the acquisition was executed. It is not about the corporate powers of GNPC, whether or not it has power to incorporate subsidiaries, whether inside the Republic or outside the Republic. It is the manner in which the payment for the acquisition was executed. And I think, from my reading of the PIAC reports, their position is that the payment was in violation of statute. Can we concentrate on that?
Well, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, we cannot, because that is the point that I was trying to raise with him, see if we can make sense of. I stopped short of developing further because I knew my other colleagues might be having a go at it. That's the point he's making. This whole issue has come about because there is some misunderstanding about the role of GNPC and how the monies could be put into certain accounts. That's the point that he is developing. So if we come to understand that by law, GNPC could do what they did, then it may be unfair to allege that he nearly slipped by saying that it was siphoning or whatever. By the process that he's discussing, which is the GNPC law, PNGC law 64, the specific provisions, bear with us, the specific provision discussing, would come to a conclusion, if we take it to its logical conclusion, that GNPC actually, I think, had both the constitutional and statutory right to do what has been missed for some of us. Our understanding is misconceived as having put into an account into which they were not supposed to do. That, I think, is what my colleague is trying to arrive at.
Thank you very much, Chairman. You couldn't have said it any better.
Carry on.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Alpha, having regard to the provisions that I just read to you, would you agree with me that GNPC did not err in law in acquiring JOHL as incorporated at the time of acquisition?
Well, you are asking the opinion, so he's not allowed to give opinion evidence?
And now, opinion...
Yeah. So, okay, so please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
respectfully,
let's be consistent.
At our last meeting, there were a lot of opinions that were allowed by the chair. And I'm surprised that now you are saying that we don't have to allow opinions.
It's agreed for him to do it, so don't worry. Go on, answer the question.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, it is precisely the reason why we try to distinguish between acquisition of a corporate entity distinguished from acquisition of interest, in a particular block.
Mr. Alpha, is it not the fact that JOHL, at the time that GNPC acquired it from Ad-hoc, was the owner of these interests in these two blocks? Is it not factual?
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, that is factual, and that is where we have even a problem as a committee. And we raised it in our report, Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear it.
But
let's hear the problem.
The way he made reference to that in the report, I would love to see that.
But let's hear the problem. You had a problem. We need to know the nature.
Mr. Chairman, like we established earlier, that there is a basis why, as a country, we decided to make a law to govern petroleum revenue management. And the basis is there. When you go back and you look back at how we manage our mineral resources.
No,
Mr. Chairman, I'm establishing a basis why we took a decision.
No, you have all the time to talk.
Yeah.
Listen, when the question is put, we want a concentration on it. He asked you a straight question, that are you aware that the Ad-hoc owed that particular entity, owned the particular entity, belonged to them. And so at the time of the acquisition, it was theirs. You said yes. And then you added at the tail end that, but you have a problem with that. I thought you had a problem with Ad-hoc owing what is the problem?
No. We have is the structuring. That is what we are.
Deal with that bit, the problem that you have, yes, or you had.
Yes, the problem we had as a committee was with the entire transaction, exclusive of the fact that the JOHL was already owned by Ad-hoc. Mr. Chairman, I think we should look at it this way. Until the acquisition.
So explain the problem you had with it, and then we can move on.
Yes.
We can make progress.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you look at before the acquisition, the equity structure did not really include JOHL before the acquisition. I mean, we have the documents from GNPC, if I can refer. The equity structure, ownership structure, did not include JOHL. It was after the acquisition that that issue of JOHL.
So now your problem is, why did Ad-hoc create the JHOL? Is that the problem you had?
No.
You said it didn't include it from the very beginning.
No.
Belatedly, it came to be included. Is that it?
No. That's why I wanted an opportunity to explain, so we can piece together why. So, Mr. Chairman, we started developing our argument from the basis that the decision in the first place to acquire is based on the preemption rights that we exercise as a nation. And Mr. Chairman, we are building a point that as a public interest committee, we are interested in how the rights we acquire by virtue of exercising these preemption rights are paid for, and how it benefits the people of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Chairman, that is precisely why we as a committee have been created. So, Mr. Chairman, we started asking questions. Questions, we even queried GNPC how when JOHL lifts, how would the returns be treated? And GNPC responded, as they have maintained, that this is a purely commercial transaction and that it is outside the ambit of the PRMA. And what we are saying is that for us, we don't have to analyze these things in isolation. We think that the most important thing that should always be at our mind should be about what is the aim of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And Mr. Chairman, that was why I wanted to establish the basis in the first place why the Petroleum Management Act came into existence. Because if we know the philosophical basis why it came, then we should...
You want to tell us that? You want to tell us now? We don't know about that.
Mr. Chairman, I know we know, because I'm sitting before Parliament, of course. I understand.
You think we know?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said...
It's just a matter of refreshing our memory on that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if you remember the debates that went into the enactment of the PRMA, one critical issue had to do with how we manage our mineral resources and revenues in the past. And we wanted to avoid all the problems that mineral revenue management in the past brought to this country, to the extent that we have a country where we cannot point to visible evidence of mineral revenue management utilization. And so on the basis of that, we come out with a Petroleum Revenue Management Act that details the precise nature of how deposits and disbursements would be done within the confines of the law. And so, Mr. Chairman, our position is that in respect of these monies that were generated from Petroleum Revenue Upstream, we think that whether directly or indirectly generated through a supposed, Mr. Chairman, subsidiary, we think it constitutes revenue management, petroleum revenue within the intendment of the law.
That's fine.
To have been paid into the DHF.
Yeah, continue.
That is the position of PIAC.
Continue.
Yeah, okay. Yes, so
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The witness has demonstrated clearly his knowledge of the Companies Act of our Republic by his initial comments to the effect about the distinctiveness of companies from their shareholders. I want to find out from him whether the revenues of the company is or can be treated as the revenue of his shareholder. I want to find out from him.
Mr. Chairman, It is the understanding of PIAC that revenues from IOCs or private companies are not revenues that go into the Petroleum Holding Fund. It is the statutory, revenues that we are talking about that should go into the Petroleum Holding Fund.
The revenue of a limited liability company by reason of the fact that its shareholder is GNPC as a statutory revenue.
Mr. Chairman, our understanding is that once GNPC acquired JOHL, the interest held by JOHL, as a subsidiary of GNPC, in our opinion, should form part of the overall interest of the GNPC.
But Mr. Co-Chairman, see, that's the difficulty I have. You answer the questions and then we seem to be going back. It's a little difficult for us to comprehend.
I think, just a minute. You see,
okay, all right. See, I don't think it's entirely your understanding of it or whatever. I think your understanding as posited in the law that we are dealing with. So try as much as possible to operate within the confines of the law. Your opinions, we all have opinions.
Mr. Chairman, exactly so. And our understanding is that we may have varying interpretations. You may have an interpretation to the law. And
so your interpretation of this is that even though it is a private company,
yes,
its finances should be what? Considered?
No, that's not my position. That's not our position.
With all due respect to my co-chair and the members of the committee, I think that the questioning of the witness is going beyond the remit of what is contained in the PIAC report. The violation, which is a subject matter of interest before this committee, is with respect to the funds that were used for the acquisition of the interest in JOHL. A limited, yes, the interest.
Well, all right. That's actually not the case.
No, that is the case.
Not the case.
That is the case.
Completely not. Then we ourselves will have to get a comprehension of what this is all about, because that's not our understanding.
Can we wait?
Mr. Chairman,
what they are dealing with is
revenue and its treatment.
No.
That is the
and revenue. There's been no wrongdoing whatsoever. None whatsoever.
No.
Mr. Chairman, if we were actually going to go back and deal with the fact of the acquisition, this service is aware of the source of money that was used in acquiring it in the first place. What we are discussing so far is the money from the various fields, the lifters. That is what we are saying that went into the wrong account. That's what we are dealing with.
Mr. Chairman, actually, the money that was used to acquire the acquisition, to make the acquisition itself, is in question. Together, that brought us to the conclusion we have come to. Mr. Chairman, the actual fact is that the monies that were advanced for the acquisition.
Mr. Chairman, I may want to draw your attention, whether you are following that, is actually going into a different field.
Yes, he is.
No, he is. What the witness is speaking about, I have no problem, because if he finishes, then it means that he had opened the Pandora's box, and we can ask him questions on that.
No, this is all
actually going on a field of its own.
Once again, this is all come out. This new dimension has come about because we think that co-chairman put the issue in a different direction from how we have come to understand it. Yeah. We think that the money in question is the liftings, yes, and not the acquisition. He now says that, well, he seems to understand that he's saying that, well, the issue we are discussing, the 100 million or whatever they are complaining about, is clarify for us. The 100 million you are talking about is in respect of what? Is it a
I'll be grateful if you limit the witness. This is a witness of the committee, and the witness is actually assisting the committee. So whatever questions that we have asked, what we want him to actually, we have to agree that he is talking about the fact that the liftings were not paid into a proper account. That's all he's saying. As to now, he is actually delving into the acquisition of the JHOL, and that's not why we are here. That's not why he was invited.
Sameh is eager to make a contribution. Well, you talk.
No, Mr. Chairman, it's important to emphasize that there are a whole gamut of issues. I disagree with the respected Honorable Enemedu that it is just one item to do with liftings. There are so many other related matters when you read the PIAC report. And when I take my turn, I'll be pointing to those issues. We should not, yes.
Take us to it. I think we are looking at, one second, we are looking at what they said that hearing court, whatever, made it first lifted at the total of the 100 and whatever million. Is that not what we are dealing with?
There are really,
no, that's not what we are dealing with.
That's not the only matter. If you look at the PIAC, if you pay regard to their report, they raise other consequential matters. For example, capital gains tax. They raise it. We have to look at that.
Well,
they raise the acquisition of the 7% shares. We have to look at that. It's all in the report. I take strong exception to the attempt to rewrite the rules and to narrow and restrict us, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman,
So if we are not being
before you do, Doctor wanted to raise a point of order. Are you still raising the point? Go on. Yeah.
Yes, Co-Chair, if I may. Normally, when we sit at a committee, you must actually address the chair and have permission from the chair before you speak. I think it's unfair that we just keep interjecting. We ask questions, we don't let the witness continue, then we keep interjecting without seeking your permission to actually have that opportunity to interrupt. And it's creating too much, of an issue with this. Let's try and allow this.
Thank you for the reminder. We'll try and abide by that. Okay, go on.
Just so that we wrap up this issue. I want to find out from the witness whether you agree with me that with his knowledge of, very well, whether the witness will agree with me that JOHL's revenue cannot be commingled with that of GNPC.
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, in the strictest consideration, yes,